Well, first I want to do is thank you all for being involved in your civic group, because I'm not either one. Deer Creek, we had the Lions Club, so. But I remember when I was just moved back to Narden from college, and we were going to Lions Club, and there was maybe I don't know, we'd stretch to get 15 there maybe if we called everybody. And I asked Dad, why do we do this? And he said, because this is where I see my friends and my neighbors that live next to me, and I wouldn't see them any other place. And we don't. In today's society, we just, if you work, wherever you work, you have that circle, and you don't get outside that circle and meet your neighbors and meet your friends, and that's one thing. The second thing is just the benevolence that you all create, both organizations, being involved and helping people. And I know there are many times, because I've had these jobs, when you think, sure, I'll do it, I don't know why. You volunteer to do something and it doesn't seem like it's paying off, but there's always a reason, and it always helps somebody. And so I want to thank you for your groups. And sometimes it's not easy to keep them together and keep them going and getting more people involved, but they're important for your community, and I appreciate it. Second thing, driving over, I was telling Ed it takes a little longer because of the traffic nowadays. There's a little bit more going on. I was speaking at Medford for their grand opening of Land Run Museum, and big trucks were going by the corner all the time. I said, that's okay. I don't mind it. That's a good thing. So the activity is definitely good, and I know that it's a lot of it is the last 4 years. It's certainly increased a lot in this area. I guess one of the things that I want to remind you of is that agriculture has always been here, and it's a mainstay and very significant impact on the state of Oklahoma. Sometimes, with healthcare and education and some of the things, there are people in this state who think that rural Oklahoma is a drag on the rest of the economy, on expenditures of state funds and all those things. But in reality, a great deal of that income comes from rural Oklahoma. So when you talk about the expenditures back in rural Oklahoma, it's because of the amount of economic impact we have. So in Woods County, we produce $57 million worth of ag products every year. And with that, we invest. This is just, everybody talks about all of the indirect cost and indirect impact of the economic impact. So when I was in the legislature, everybody would come. Tourism, banking, you just name it, everybody. You add all the billions that they're worth, and it's more than this state's ever seen. So I break it down to the exact ag sales. This is ag sales out of Woods County is $57 million. And that's approximately $51 million is put back into the land to produce the next crop. So that's wheat that wasn't here last year, cattle that weren't here last year, any other livestock that wasn't here last year. We created it, and it's a sellable product, so it's creating that impact. So there's $108 million in Woods County that wasn't here last year that we've invested and that we've taken out. As a state, it's $7.3 billion, despite the fact that we went through one of the worst droughts in 2011. We had the hottest, driest summer ever experienced by any state in the United States ever recorded. And our economic impact in 2011, which data's sometimes a year or two behind, but was about $36 billion, and now we're $39.6 billion for agriculture with the direct and indirect. So we've continued to grow. And then another thing is people argue about the most valuable natural resource in the state. Well, if you focus it down to human life, it's definitely air. You last about 3 minutes without air. You'll last about, I think it's 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. So food is the third most critical element that that we have to sustain human lives. So what agriculture provides is important for everybody. So what do we do in agriculture? The governor asked us to, set our goals, set our priorities, spend our money on on areas that focus on 4 goals. And so we thought through those, what should be our 4 goals. And one of them is increase ag receipts, the ones that I just talked about. And so how do you do that when you don't control the weather, you don't control diseases, you don't control commodity prices? There's so many things you don't control. But still, we look at it, the ultimate goal for us as a state, producers and government, is to increase our gross ag receipts. So despite the fact that it's really hard to do, when you have a drought, we decreased regulations, allowed different regulations for hay hauling and all types of things. We had a drought commission, access money to drill wells and do all sorts of things. So, we still can have an impact, and we try to do that. Second one is increase ag processing of our raw commodities. We want to increase the processed, the food. We sell way too much of Oklahoma ag products as a raw commodity. Increase agricultural exports is our third one, and fourth was an increased food manufacturing. And I talk about that later. The food manufacturing, all of our crops together is, crops and livestock is $7.3 billion. Well, food manufacturers, 45 food manufacturers produce $3 billion worth of sales. So that's how much difference it is from selling the raw product to a processed product. And then last is educating consumers, and I'll talk about that later too. Then I just thought I would talk about some things that we do. I don't know how many of you saw this plane last summer for the Woodward Fire. This is a U.S. We contracted for this through the U.S. Forest Service, and this plane worked at the first time it had ever been in flight fighting a real fire was in the Guthrie Fire last year. And it's actually amphibious. It picks up water. It fills 1,600 gallons in 12 seconds. Turnaround time at the Guthrie Fire, filling out of the Liberty Lake, was 8 minutes. So it was 8 minutes between drops of 1,600 gallon of water. In the Woodward Fire, it's Fort Supply Lake. It was 13 and a half minutes to 15 minutes, and they dumped 40,000 gallon of water on the Woodward Fire. So, people don't know that the Force Division of ODAF is responsible for wildland fire. Now, obviously, your rural fire departments and your local fire departments are the first ones, and they, fight the fire until it's beyond their control. And then we have planes, and we direct the National Guard or these people, whatever we can get, to help coordinate all the rural fire departments and the local fire departments on the fire. So, and any of the major fires, we actually bring the fire departments, the firefighters from southeastern part of the state to wherever it is at the fire, because they have dozers and machinery and people that fight fires all the time that other areas of the state just can't afford to do. So we pre-position them, and when it's really hot and dry, and we've been remarkably blessed with some of the conditions that we've had last year and so far this year, that we haven't had more fires. And I'll tell you, well, I won't go into arson, but it's when you see fires that recur in the same position, same locations various times, it often is. And Logan County is getting pretty suspicious about what has been happening there. So we have investigators who can actually identify where most fires start, and are very good at it. So we'll look at that. Then another thing, I'm just going to tell you some of the things that we do, some of the successes that we had last year. We've planted over 6 million trees. I know that that's really not a Woods County thing, but in southeastern Oklahoma, we partner with Huber, which Huber is a company that had shut down to almost one day a week. And really struggled while the construction in 2008, 2009, when housing construction was down. And so they're building back up. But we have a seedling facility in Goldsby that starts the trees from seeds and then partner with that company, and they buy all the trees from us and plant them in southeastern Oklahoma. We've reduced more streams from the impaired list in the state of Oklahoma than any of the other states. Now, most of them are focused in northeastern Oklahoma now, but we have it's basically the Conservation Commission mostly, but the DEQ and others all partner together to document that we're taking nutrients, we're taking phosphorus and nitrogen out of streams and making them more swimmable. With livestock, we sampled 45,957 samples for pseudorabies, brucellosis, and equine anemia. And so I actually divided that out when they turned this in. We asked them for all their successes. That's 22 samples an hour the entire year, and there's only 3 employees doing it. So, I mean, that's really significant. And everybody that transports a livestock has to have one of those before to transport them to shows or outside of the state. I would just go over all the consumer protection things that we do. We've recovered $1.5 million of stolen property with our investigative unit, supported the charges of 200 felonies. I'll go into just recently out in the Panhandle, the feral hog situation where a person transported feral hogs into the Panhandle for, as far as, we don't know that they've not had a problem there. They've not really had them. But hog hunting and hog dogs and that group is, it's hard to slow them down because it's fun. But it's certainly Oklahoma's intention that when you can hunt hogs and catch hogs all you want, but we want you to kill them, because 35% of all the feral hogs tested have tested positive for pseudorabies, and 20% of all the feral hogs have tested positive for brucellosis. Pseudorabies is transmittable to other animals, and swine are the only thing that actually carries it and transmits it. So that it's pseudorabies. It's kind of I don't understand it. It's not my area of expertise, but they can transmit it to dogs, to horses, to cattle. Dogs and cattle and horses can't pass it on to anything else. It's a swine disease, and humans can't get it, so it's not something that we're worried about. But it kills livestock. And so it can have a really serious impact. There was 10 dogs in Arkansas that killed a feral hog, ate it, and all 10 of them died. And that's what happened. So it's really critical for our agricultural industry that we do our best to eliminate feral hogs. And so we're trying to be more public about the fact that it's illegal to transport them without a license. The cat got out of the bag several years ago when we made it legal to have hunting areas for feral hogs, high fenced areas. So we have some of those in Oklahoma, and we're proposing that the only thing you can do with feral hog is kill it, transport it to a processing facility or a high hunt area, and we're proposing a moratorium on any new high hunt areas so we don't get any more of them. Again, I said the Made in Oklahoma Coalition, which Divine Water is one of them, has 25,000 employees. That's kind of the food processing portion of the industry. Is 25,000 employees and $3 billion in sales, and that's what I was saying is so much. It makes so much difference in our economy. We do pet breeders, metal recycling, and those are things, consumer protection things that, as the Department of Ag, we didn't ask for them. We didn't want them. We went to the legislature. We told them we didn't want them. We didn't want to regulate pet breeders, but we do. We do. And we do a really good job of it. We hired, instead of the previous group was had law enforcement people and and news media following them, and we care more about really doing our job. We hired a vet. So the vet goes and does all the inspections. And we don't, we're not out trying to make a show for ourselves. We just want to regulate the industry that we're regulating. Metal recycling, we didn't want it. We said, no, we don't want to do it. They said, but we do measure all the scales in the state of Oklahoma. So all of the metal recyclers have to have a scale. So that means we're already on their side. So that's why they gave it to us. So the last thing I'll talk about is just the craziness of marketing food now. So I was in, Austin, Texas, for an ag conference, and I was just walking the street because when I was with Margaret, she always wants to walk, and I went by a restaurant. It was hamburgers. I don't know what else beef, but their beef makes us different. It's vegetarian fed on the side of the building. Vegetarian fed beef. Now, y'all realize that they don't eat anything but grass. So, and it's also hormone free, which there's not any animals that are hormone free either. But they may be no hormones added. Here is something that we took out of grocery store. It's chicken, no hormones or steroids added. And then down on the bottom of the label, which is required, the federal government prohibits steroids and hormones to be added. So it's illegal to add it, but they put it on their package that they didn't add it. So here is one that I had at an ag conference that I went to. Another one, sweet potato chips, no wheat or gluten included. And well, that's great, but we don't put on our wheat chips, we don't put no potatoes in them. It's about marketing what you don't have in your product, not what you actually have in your product. Here is one in Oklahoma City, good old grass-fed, 100% grass-fed. And, I'm really thankful that it's grass-fed since it's seasoned lean cod. So we don't have fish. We don't have fish eating grass. That's a good thing. Now there are fish that might eat grass, the carp, but cod is not one of them that eats fish. This one really is my favorite, and it was in Washington, D.C. Free-range chickpeas. So those of you who wonder what a chickpea looks like, this is what a chickpea looks like. So they don't go running around too much, even if they are free-range. And this is actually a good bar. This is it's Kind is the name of it, and they taste good. I commend them for their product, but their marketing is all natural, non-GMO, gluten-free, low glycemic, very low sodium, dairy-free, cholesterol-free, no soy, no trans fat, no sulfur dioxide, no hydrogenated oils. So it's not what they have in their product, it's what they don't have in their product. And OSU recently did a study, and they just released it this week, so some of you probably read it. Do you support mandatory labeling on GMO foods? 82% said yes. Do you support mandatory labeling on food containing DNA? 80% said yes. 2% difference. So every plant, every animal has DNA. But it's about labeling what you don't have instead of labeling what you're actually selling. So, there are all kinds of people out there making money, selling books with their own philosophy of what's good for you and what's bad for you. The guy who said that gluten, there is, I forgot the name of it right now, the disease with gluten, celiac disease. That's a real disease. 1% of the population has it. I don't have a problem with labeling foods for that because and marketing, but the other 90% who think that they need to eat gluten-free is not necessarily, that is just not true. And the researcher who said that there's another 9% that's allergic to it has now said, "Oops, I was wrong." He's set on a retraction that said the other 9% really probably is not allergic to gluten. But that'll never get the attention that the first report gets. So it's just getting consumers that are going to the grocery store to really know what they're purchasing, and is really what we spend a lot of time doing. Is ag in the classroom, farm to school, trying to get kids. We try to put gardens in elementary schools. Oklahoma City's going to try to put a garden in every elementary school because, kids don't. My kids are the same. I was probably the same. I'm sure I was the same. I remember now. But, they don't want vegetables. But when you actually see it grown from a seed to a plant to a product, and see people eating it raw straight off the plant, it changes their perspective. So we're trying to do a lot of things to try to get people to understand that a lot of the sensationalism about how food is bad for you isn't true. I'll tell you, I'll close with one more story. I started running with my wife, couch to 5K, and ended up, I didn't know I could ever, never liked running. Ended up running a half marathon and then a full marathon. And so for a full marathon, I thought, I'll get this shirt that says, Oklahoma Agriculture on the front, this runner's powered by beef, pork, milk, all the bad things that people... But you know what, because no one really runs. They run with bright colors, but nobody ever really has a message. And I thought, I'll just tell people that, it's okay to eat these things. But what I learned is, all those marathon runners, they know you got to have carbohydrates and protein and all that. They all eat right. They aren't crazy. So I was talking to the wrong people. I need to go take a lesson from them. Anyway, if you have any questions, that's what I'll wrap up on. If you have questions about what we do or anything about Oklahoma,
Well, the city of Alva is putting in a transfer station, and we'd like to start some rudimentary recycling, starting with metal. And we wondered if there were any grants that might be available to this startup operation.
I don't know. I have that would kind of be a Department of Commerce thing. All we do, well, like I said, we didn't want to do is they told us if you just license these recyclers, then when you have the run-of-the-mill person set up in a Walmart parking lot without we can arrest them because they don't have a license to operate, and pick up stolen metal, stolen copper. That's what they're really after. And it turns out that now they want us to regulate it and do all the inspections too. So, so that's what we do with the recycled metal, and we don't necessarily do the grants for that type of thing. I think that'd be kind of a Department of Commerce question. Okay. Again, I appreciate you all, and I'm so thrilled that Northwestern Oklahoma is having such a great time, and I know that the oil price is a concern, and we've been through those times before, and we'll go through them again, and hopefully we won't have as deep of impact as the last one did. Thanks.